Today, I'd like to walk through the usage of BibTeX and Hayagriva. These are citation tools that Typst can use in order to build bibliographies automatically. I want to talk about some of the benefits and why you might want to use them. I'll talk a little bit further about where they kind of come from, and I'll show some examples of how to generate a bibliography. And I'll talk about citation keys, how to cite work, a standard that I generally use for generating citation keys, and what it takes to use these tools a little bit. So this is more of an introduction, and I'm sure there's a lot more sophistication that can be performed when you use these tools, and hopefully you find this helpful. So with that, let's create an empty document, call it example 3. Or sorry, 5, example 5. So let's talk about, so if I want to write a bibliography, I could handwrite it. Like I could literally type, Smith, title, right, and then I could do that. Right, I could write these references at the end of a bibliography by hand, and then manually in my document basically reference these as they appear and shift them around. There's nothing wrong with that. It can present issues if you change the order of citations in your document. You may have to renumber your citations. You might also make a mistake, because data entry, if you have lots and lots of citations, say you're writing a thesis and you may have like 100 to 200 citations, something like that, you could easily make mistakes. So using a tool like BibTeX or Hayagriva may allow you to reduce the chances of those mistakes and establish a better practice of keeping track of your citations and managing them efficiently. So the things that I'd like to cover in this video, I'll list right here, and they include more focus on BibTeX than Hayagriva, and that's mostly because my background has been one of using LaTeX for many years, and so because I use LaTeX for many years, I've used BibTeX, and I can't speak to all of the nuances that Hayagriva provides, but I can explain a little bit about how to use it through an example. So maybe that will be helpful for you. So what is BibTeX? So BibTeX is essentially a standard of basically you write a document, and in that document you have a list of all of your references. So it's a tool and a file format. A Bib file or a BibTeX file is generally how it's referred to, and it's a tool for formatting. So it tells Typst, in this case, how to format the bibliography references, and it issues each reference a citation key. And so we're going to talk about that in detail. Now, the structure is very easy to read, and the database is, we'll get into that in a second. It's essentially a database or a collection of references. And it was originally created a long time ago, long is relative here, but sometime in like the mid 80s. And basically it's become a very accepted practice for when you use LaTeX for how to manage your citations and reference them. The purpose is to make this thing easy and give LaTeX the access, right? So little descriptions here. So next I'd like to cover installing BibTeX. So no install is necessary because it's currently supported by Typst. So that's really nice. Using BibTeX. Okay, let's talk about using BibTeX. So when you use BibTeX, you will generate this Bib file. So let's do that real quick. So we come over here to the Explore Files, and I'm going to add a new file, and I'm going to call it refs.bib. So these are going to be my collection of citations. And I hit the enter key and it completes that. So now I'm going to come in here. Now in here, you're going to type your references, and I'll show you kind of a tool how to get these automatically. And so I have pasted an example of many different kinds, right? Journal papers like articles, books, booklets, an entire conference, in a collection of things, proceedings like conference papers, theses, tech reports, right? Things of these nature, right? So they're all, there's a bunch of examples here, and feel free to use them. They come from BibTeX resources online and have just been collected. But I want to talk about kind of this structure. So if I was going to do a journal paper, this would be the citation key. And so the citation key essentially tells Typst, essentially, I want to reference this work, okay? And this is the information that it needs to know when it generates essentially the citation at the end of the document or your bibliography. So so there can be a couple standards, and there is a standard that I use for generating citation keys. And so let's get back to our main document. So when I'm doing a citation key, I have these things called EX conference, EX article, they're examples. But what I like to do is establish a standard. So that way, when you look at your citation keys, you can quickly realize who wrote it, when it was written, and maybe what it's about. And that's to use the last name, the year, and maybe the first word of the title or first description of the title. And that allows you, while you're typing, to quickly reference this material. It's just a practice I use, but essentially this might help you with your practices and your organization. So we talked a little bit about the citation keys. We've talked about some of the approaches, like how you have to construct this file. I'm gonna just summarize why you use BibTeX is. I don't know the limitations. I mean, it's intended for citation management. So you use it for building a bibliography, but I don't know the limitations are that Typst only allows currently one BibTeX call. So if you have multiple bib files, like let's say I have multiple bib files, like I used a bib file for one paper and a bib file for another paper, Typst only allows you to call one bib file. So you might have to combine them into a single. So that's kind of a restriction, I guess. They are readable. You can write them, and they do also work with LaTeX. So that is very nice. If you for some reason have to go over to LaTeX for some reason later down the line, let's say your advisor says you can't use Typst. Now all of a sudden you've written this entire paper. That may reduce a little effort for one step. So let's talk about kind of citing, because let's just get to the nuts and bolts. So citing. So let's say I want to reference an article. I can type the @ and type EX article, right? And so this essentially is the citation key for the bib file, right? Now it doesn't recognize that exists, okay? And the reason it doesn't recognize that exists is because I don't actually have included in this document any form of bibliography, right? So I need to do that in order for it to know that it should present a bibliography. So for that, we're going to do bibliography, and it wants to know what file we're going to call refs.bib. Okay, and now that error went away immediately because now it knows that it's including that file. And then we can choose a style. Okay, so we can do Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. That's a well accepted standard in my field, so that's one I'm familiar with, so I'm going to use that. And then I can change the title. So if I don't like the title, some publications that I like, I don't know. So if you don't use that, by default it will say bibliography, right? But you can force the title to be anything you would like. This could be useful if I was building a resume and I can say, these are a list of my publications, or my most important work, right? You can change the title. Okay, so now that I've done this step, right, now this will autocomplete. So let's go back. So I'll say @ex, and now look at all the examples. These are all the ones that live in the BibTeX file. I can just click it and it generates it. So that's a single citation. But sometimes, right, I want to reference more than one. So I can say I'm going to do ex article, and let's do ex book, and we'll do ex conference. Okay, so in this case, it automatically recognized I had 3 of these, and in the text you can see it did 1 through 3. So now that's automatically knowing that it needs to do these inline variants, right? And so, you may notice that if I have lots of these that are, not completely in line, so maybe I need to do a couple more. So let's do some more are ex in book, ex manual, ex PhD thesis. Right now, consider ex article, and we'll do PhD and 4. So now in here, right, if I just list these, it'll say 164. It'll automatically put commas, but I don't generally like to do that. I like to make it more like a sentence. So it's so like a comma and, right. And I might reorder these manually after the fact to get them in order, just so it's a little more clean. But that's essentially how you would cite those. There's one added feature, which is, let's say you have a book. So if I have a book, you might want to call it a certain page, right? So in that case, a certain page is of interest or range. And that would be, at, and then we could do ex book. And then in square brackets as an option, I can do PP 1 through, 34, right? And so what that's doing now, let's just make this a new line, is it's saying I'm going to use reference 2 and then specifically these pages inside reference 2, which is nice. So you can essentially have a lot of control over your publications. It's quite quick and efficient, and that's BibTeX in a nutshell. The last thing is how do I get BibTeX files? So for that, I can go to Google Scholar and I can type we can look for a paper. So let's say we look for Isaac Newton. So in here, we can come to Isaac Newton. We can look up our paper. And what's really nice is in these, there are people that have published works, right? And if you click the Cite button, it gives you what it looks like automatically. But if you come down here, it says BibTeX. And if I click BibTeX, it opens a new page. And it gives you the BibTeX file. And I can select that, copy that, and I can come back over to my BibTeX file, come down to the bottom, and then I can paste it. And here it is. Look, it already gives you the author, the year, and title citation key, which you are free to choose to whatever you want. Give you the title, author, and it says it's a journal, and it was done in this year. Now, unfortunately, with this being a journal, there's some incomplete information here. So what you'll want to do is come back to this document and then access this paper. and see if you can find out the issue number and the remaining information about this book. So, or sorry, about this this article. So, it's always important to double check the BibTeX files from Google Scholar because they're not always correct, and they can be misleading. And so, it's a quick way to start, but ultimately you should be vetting and ensuring that they're correct. This one's missing some necessary information if it truly is a journal paper. And as a result, you probably should go in and double check it. So I'm just going to delete this just because I just want to have this example file for anyone to use, and I don't need to necessarily include an Isaac Newton article from 2008. Okay, so that is how you can get a BibTeX, how you can get BibTeX information and put it inside. It's a way. There are many other ways. You can use reference managers. And we can do a whole nother video about that, but that's unrelated to Typst. But essentially here, I think we've walked through the basics of BibTeX. And now I'd like to do page break. Oops, I'm not in my main document. I'd like to do a page break, and I'd like to talk about Hayagriva. Okay, so very quickly, I've already generated some information here about Hayagriva, and I'm just going to paste it in, and we can walk through it. Okay, so what is Hayagriva? So Hayagriva is a TOML-based approach. So it basically gives you the same functionality as BibTeX, but it does it through a different process, and that process uses YAML files. YAML stands for yet another markdown language, so it's just essentially a text file at the end of the day. To install Hayagriva, you're going to have to do some steps. So on a Mac, I had to type these commands. I had to do cargo install Hayagriva features CLI. I needed the command line interface. Now, I needed this because I wanted to convert a BibTeX file over to a YAML file. So I wanted to take this example bib and then create a YAML file. But if you know how to code the Hayagriva directly, none of this is necessary. You can code it directly. And so this essentially, you would need to install Hayagriva if you wanted to convert a bib file over to a YAML file. But this may not be necessary. Maybe you have the YAML file directly. And so for that, right, we can let's create a new file called refs.yaml, Y-A-M-L. Oops, not res, refs. Right, and it has a little elephant here. And so this is what, if I take this refs.bib and I convert it over to Hayagriva, this is the output of that document, of that YAML conversion, right? So to do that requires, installing software and doing this conversion. But maybe you can parse from this YAML file what's necessary so that you can use it and type it directly and not necessarily have to do the install. Currently, a lot of journals and conferences don't give you the Hayagriva YAML files. It's not widely accepted, but maybe one day it will be. And the benefits of Hayagriva are that essentially it's Rust based, so that's not, because you can see the cargo install, it's Rust based. And there are some other benefits that include things like compilation time is probably more efficient. The storage of data is probably more efficient, and the way everything is parsed is probably better as far as computational time. And then there are a number of ways of doing customization, which are really nice, and which maybe in a later video. I have plans to do another video that talks about how you can change the way that you format your bibliography, so you can highlight your authors' names and you can highlight the maybe dates, or the customization of presentation is a lot better when you reference a Hayagriva, because a YAML file, because it gives you access to all these different kind of formatting potentials. But for now, right, I just want to introduce you to being able to call it and being able to use it. So let's talk about kind of how to use it. And I think I have an example here that will allow us to show you how you can use it. So if I come down here, so let's use a Hayagriva form. So I'm going to take the bibliography command from above. Remember, I can only have one of those. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it down here at the bottom. That's going to throw a bunch of arguments. And this is now a YAML file, right? And it says you can't do multiple bibliography. So I have to come up here and I'm going to comment out that bibliography here. So now it says no error. So I come down here and look, here we go. The same bibliography we had before appears down here. This, you can, if you use a YAML file, it's accepted, right? If I'm using the Hayagriva form, or if I'm using the BibTeX form, it's accepted. For now, I'm going to comment this out, and I'm going to have the other one presented here. That way, when people come to use this document, which I'm going to share, you can see all of this code, and that might help you out. So hopefully you found this useful. And if you're new to citations and BibTeX, this might be a little overwhelming, but I hope it wasn't too bad. And with that, thank you very much. Please consider subscribing and to these videos. I plan to make many more on different topics. If you have any ideas, please provide them below. I'd be happy to consider them and add them to my list. I have a number of upcoming talks I'm planning that are based off of some comments that I've had in the past. So with that, thank you very much and have a nice day.